Welcome to Digital Marketing This Week. It is episode number 13, lucky number 13. It's September 6th, 2014. Hope that you enjoyed a wonderful week, actually a wonderful couple of weeks, because I was actually in a mastermind last weekend and was not able to record a live version. So instead of doing our pre-recorded one, we decided we'll go ahead and just take the week off and then come back with some more fun stuff. In this case, we're going to be talking about copywriting. We'll get into that in just a second. Of course, this is all brought to you by Seriously Simple Marketing over at seriouslysimplemarketing.com. Lots of good advice and tricks and tips and techniques and all sorts of fun stuff for those of you who are building your online business. And of course, we'd love to see your comments of the blog post, the topics that you're looking for. Anything we can do to help you out, we definitely want to make sure that we're being a service for you. My name, of course, is Chris Mercer. I'm your host for DMTW, but more importantly, I'm a content developer for Seriously Simple Marketing. Hence my request to have you check out the blog and make sure that we're addressing the stuff that you're looking for. If you need additional topics or you want more detail or less detail or anything like that, just drop some comments in the blog and we'll be sure to address them. Now, the official day job, I guess, for us is optimization experts. We are analytics and split testing gurus. That's kind of what we spend our time doing. We are actually getting very, very involved with something called Google Tag Manager now, which is a little more advanced, but a ton of fun for those of you who are into analytics. And of course, as we mentioned earlier, host of DMTW, Digital Marketing This Week. And yes, I just go by Mercer. So you'll see the emails are all signed -Mercer. That's because that's what everybody calls me, because there's always another Chris in the room. So, okay. This week's topic, copywriting. What we want to do is, if you have questions about this topic as you come across, if you're watching this live, just go to ssm.tips/question, and you'll be taken to a form. It looks something like this. You can put in your question there. We already do have a lot of questions from the replay requests. Obviously, if you can't watch this live, we totally understand, and when you're part of the notification list, you can sign up to request a replay instead for this particular topic, and once that happens, it takes you to a Q&A where you can actually ask questions. That way, if you can't join us live, at least you can get your question answered. So, but again, if you are live, go ahead and visit us here, and we will go ahead and answer what we can. All right, so again, copywriting is the focus topic for today. In particular, it's how to write great sales copy. Now, what we wanted to focus on was sort of a 7-step checklist that every good copywriter follows. We wanted to go through and say, okay, of all the different copy that there is, and there's a ton of it, and I'm going to give you a ton of links, especially in the show notes when we do the replay and we send that out, you're going to see a ton of links where you can get just great stuff on copywriting. But what we wanted to do is show you the 7 steps that we thought every good copywriter followed, and then there's one thing, like if there was one thing that they all tried to avoid, that they knew they just never ever wanted to do, what would that be? And so that's kind of how we summarized this. Now, as I go through this, there's going to be lots of opportunity for questions, as we mentioned earlier, but lots of opportunity for notes, because we wanted to keep the slides somewhat general, just to make sure that we made them readable and easy to read and comprehend. But I'm going to be going into a lot of detail on each one of these topics, which you'll see. So as much as you can jot down notes, make sure you got a pen and paper handy, or maybe a mind map, or whatever it is that you like to do. Okay, so let's go ahead and move on without further ado. Number 1. Very, 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 very important thing. We see this a lot in conversions when we're working with clients and they're asking us to review their sales pages. We were actually talking with somebody yesterday with a client about their sales page, and this came up because people, and this is not just, when we say, I guess we should have defined copywriting. So copywriting is not just sales pages, right? So we talked about how to write great sales copy, but great sales copy is also used for emails. So consider that. When you're talking about sales copy, it's not just landing pages, it's your emails, it's your stick sequences, it's everything else that you're writing whenever you're communicating to your market, whatever medium that is. That's what we're talking about when we mention copywriting. So this rule comes up a lot, and it's one page, one purpose, okay? One message, one purpose. That's what you want. You want to make sure that whatever you're writing to, there is just one clear call to action. Don't try to do too many things. I see this, the easiest way to see it is in emails. People will do 14 different links in emails, and they'll say, oh, if you're more interested in this, then check out this post, or maybe over here, but really, P.S., there's an affiliate offer that we thought was great, you can check this out. And there's so much scattered choices that you're going to kill your conversions. I mean, there's just no way to say that. It kills conversions. And I also see it on sales pages. This is where people say, well, learn more, click here to learn more about this feature, or click here to read more testimonials. So That's not really what you want them doing on a sales page. You want them reading testimonials, right? But why would you make them click here for more testimonials? What possible purpose would that have? Other than, yes, I want to read more testimonials. I don't trust you yet. I want to see what other people are saying. So instead of emphasizing that action, that whole I don't trust you, so yes, I would like to see what other people are saying, just put them there. Just put all the testimonials there, and then focus your click, that click request, that one thing you want them to do, focus it on the action, which could be a squeeze page. Again, going back, it doesn't have to be a sales page. Sales copy can also be for opt-ins. So just have that call to action be click here to purchase, or click here to sign up, and then your email, because you got to remember decisions, every time you have a decision point, okay, and this is also true if you put a sales page up and you'll see navigation. So people do this a lot, and sometimes it's unavoidable. So for example, if you're doing AdWords, it's unavoidable. Facebook, at least right now, it's pretty easy. Twitter, it's also pretty easy. But for sites like AdWords, they won't let you mail or advertise directly to a squeeze page or directly to an old school style landing page. They need to have other links. Now, they don't have to be super prominent, but you do have to have like terms and conditions and privacy policies and all that stuff, and you want to have those things anyway, but you don't need to make them on your top navigation, which we see a lot of people do. People will just kind of take their blog and whatever the navigation is, they'll build a sales page on it, and so you're essentially being able, you can click from a sales page, you can click on their blog. We see that as a mistake a lot, and again, you don't want people doing that. You want people focused on whatever that page is supposed to do, which in the case of an ebook, if you're selling an ebook, it's to sell the ebook, and that's it, or to sell your course. If it's to get an email, it's to get an email. Everything else that you ask them to do, or that you give them the option to do, creates a decision point. Should I click on the blog if the navigation's up there for blog? Should I click where it says read more testimonials? Every time I have to ask myself something, it's creating friction and offering distraction from the main message. It's breaking the hypnosis of your copy. And so if you take anything away from this, one page, one mission, one purpose, right? One message, one mission, one page, one purpose. That's what we're looking at here. And everything that you put on that page, whether again, email, whether it's a sales page, whether it's an opt-in, it has to support this one single purpose. So if the testimonials are there, the testimonials are there to encourage clicks to buy or clicks to opt in, right? If you've got an email, you know, you might have an image that's in the email. The image should be something that's related to whatever it is that you want them to click on. You know, so that's sort of what we're talking about here. So everything that's built on this page, on your copy, should be directed toward ultimately getting this click. It's all very, very focused on this one particular action. The second thing that we've noticed that all great copywriting and all good copywriters are using is they're learning the language. They learn their language. And what I mean by there is the market. Right? So your market, people buy from those who they like. You've probably heard this before, the whole know, like, and trust thing, right? People buy from who they know, like, and trust. And in more particular, people buy from those who they like. So if they have an affinity for them, these are the people that they're more likely to buy for. Well, how do you gain an affinity? How? Because somebody's just coming across, you know, maybe they did a Google search and found your page, or maybe they clicked on a Facebook ad, and they come across and they're there and they see your page, and how do you get them to like you? Well, part of the way you can do that is by using jargon, using their words. And this is what we talk about when we say learn their language. Remember, there is the market, your market. Learn your market's language, and it's completely different. Every single one of you has a unique market. I don't care if two of you are in the same niche. There's different markets, completely different markets. So we can have two people that are in the dating niche. They have completely different markets. It's because the styles are different, their marketing is different, and they attract different markets. So you want to make sure that you learn the market language. Now, how do you do this? We talk about jargon. And really all jargon is using the same words that the people would use on their own, right? So use your kind of visitor's language or your reader's language. Now, some of this might be sort of like, okay, I'm not sure exactly what to do with that, so here's how you do it. You go and use Amazon reviews. I'm going to show you this here. So we're going to go live for just one quick second. And let's jump into Amazon.com. And this is a real cool shortcut to getting ideas for a lot of stuff. This is a great copywriter tip, or great copy tip, I should say. So let's go through here and say, what do we want to sell? Let's sell dog training. And let's do books. Why not? Okay, so we're going to sell a dog training course. What we're going to look for is something that's got a lot of reviews. Okay, so 500 reviews, and reviewed some ups and some downs. So we don't need to necessarily find all of the good ones, but there's 600 reviews. So there we go. So this is the Dog Whisperer. So some good things, some bad things. Let's go ahead and click on this. So what we're going to do is we find your niche, right? So type in whatever your niche is, pull up all the books, find some reviews, decent reviews. Like some of these smaller ones, let's face it, these just could be internet marketers and their friends that posted, right? So, but if you got 600, it's less likely that's happening. So it's probably real world sort of stuff. So we're going to click here. We've got 602 customer reviews. And what we're looking for is you're going to scan these reviews. Now remember, you're looking for jargon. What do people naturally speak? How does your market naturally speak? In this case, we're looking about dog training, right? So if I'm creating a book about dog training, what is the market talking about? So let's see. Great guide, beginner experienced. I'm just going to kind of wing this here as we go through. So positive reinforcement only. Let's see. So positive reinforcement's a phrase. So we've got that. So if you were mentioning that, that might be something you would put in your copy. Dog obedience training. So dog obedience. Maybe trying to rehabilitate a dog. That might be something people talk about. All right, let's see what people see. Dog whisperer, dog social shows. This is a negative one. So now here you go. So really hard. So this is a possible objection point. Okay, so now this could be something where you could put in your copy. Okay, if you're tired of these Zen New Age approaches to dog obedience training, right? You could do something like that. There's a possible objection here where people are thinking, you know, I've seen Dog Whisperer, and if this dog training product's like that, it's not my cup of tea. So this is a way to sort of polarize your audience. Maybe your market responds to this. Again, you got to test this sort of stuff, but here's where you find out what to test, what phrases to test. So wasted money. If you're tired of wasting money on books that are just full of BS, I mean, you could do stuff like this. Just take these words directly from the reviews. So let's see. There you go. So you don't want to be hard on your dog, but you just don't want them to get away from murder. You know, things like that. You know, here you go. Cuteness doesn't last long. So, you know, and this is your story. This could be a total hook right here. So here you've got a review where she's talking about, oh, puppies are super cute. We love puppies. And then after a while, the cuteness wears off, right? So this could be a total hook. And you can get this from their words. They're giving you your copy, right? So this is Amazon, and book reviews are amazing as a resource. And this is what we mean when we mean to speak the language. And don't just read a few. Read, I mean, there's 600 here, but at least scan 100 or 200 of them. I mean, spend some time, spend an hour. We're just doing a few minutes here, but spend an hour going through hundreds and hundreds of reviews. It's, you know, copy and paste them out, take the bits and pieces and kind of have this little cheat sheet where you can put them all together in a Google Doc somewhere, or keep them in Evernote or whatever it is that you use. But that's where you're going to get your bits and pieces of all of this different information of how the market speaks and different high points. You'd be like, oh, well, it could be a possible objection point, or here's something people really like, or I like how she phrased this. You might see people start replying to other people's reviews, and if that starts happening, if you start seeing that, that's where you really know, okay, they were engaging, they hit a nerve there. People were replying, whether it's good or bad, they got action, right? Because it takes some effort for somebody to reply and have a conversation over Amazon reviews. So if that's happening, take it. I mean, that's what it's there for. So it's an incredible research tool. And again, that's Amazon reviews. So use that. And again, this is one of those things, like if you're taking notes and you haven't heard about this before, about using Amazon reviews, big giant star there, and do that today, because that is amazing. You'll learn so much market research just doing that. Now, this third option here is one-on-one. Okay, so remember, you're not talking to hundreds of people. Now, when we do this webinar, and you know, we do this weekly webinar, we realize that there's more than one person listening to us. But what I try to do as a host is I try to sit there and say, okay, I'm talking to one person, right? I'm talking to you sitting there, and you're in your office or your computer, and you're listening to us. Maybe you're walking around, whatever it is, but you're trying to tune in and learn some information, in this case obviously about copywriting. We're talking to you, and that's the voice that we try to come across, at least most of the time. With your sales copy, it's the same way. And I know I personally can speak from experience on this. When I started writing sales copy, I wrote to tens of thousands of people. Like, that's just how I did it. In my head, that's what it was. I was talking to the internet, talking to the market, right? Talking to all the people who want to learn about dog training. And I'm writing this sales letter to all the tens of thousands of people who want to learn about dog training and are frustrated by it. And that won't connect. It sounds woo-woo, I get, but there is an energy that will come across in your copy, and you won't connect with an individual because you weren't writing to an individual. You were writing to hundreds of thousands of people, or whatever that picture in your mind was. So what you want to do is you want to have this one-on-one conversation, right, for one person. Okay, you can do things what they call empathy maps that will help you to determine that. But the better that you know who this person is that you're writing to, okay, and in marketing you'll hear it referred to as your avatar. Okay, the better that you know them, the better you know who that person is, the more effective your copy is going to be. And it's just kind of like this picture shows here. It's all about having this one-on-one conversational coffee shop, right? You two are going out to a coffee shop, you're having a conversation about this particular product, and you're just sort of explaining how it works and everything else, but you're talking to this one particular person who's the perfect person for this product. It's a no-brainer. They will absolutely buy it. And that's who you want to talk to. Now, I mentioned empathy maps. Let me just show you that. And spoiler alert, we will be having an upcoming blog post on empathy maps where we're going to create a cool little map that people can download. But in the meantime, all you need to do is use our friend Google. And I'm going to flip over to images because that's just the fastest way to explain it. So this is basically an empathy map. So let me just pull this up here. So this is all this really is. Let me just view image, kind of separate it out. So if you've ever seen an empathy map or heard about it, this is all it really is. It's a way of you working through what your prospect is experiencing with all their senses. That's really all it is. So what are they thinking and feeling about their dog training? Okay, again, we'll stick with dog training. What are they thinking and feeling? What do they see when they think about dog training? What do they say and do when they think about dog training or finding solutions for dog training? What are they hearing? What are they saying to themselves when they listen to themselves talk about dog training or hear others talk about dog training? You know, what's the pain? You know, what are they running from? And then what are they running toward? What's the gain? The payoff. So that's what an empathy map is. It is kind of a useful exercise to go through. It takes a few times. And a lot of times you can go through, I would personally use the Amazon reviews first because you get just such an incredibly clear, because you're hearing, you know, you're literally hearing the words, you're seeing the words they wrote, you're using their language, which is by far the most powerful. And so then you would put their language in here. So when people start saying, oh, well, I see my dog do da da da, you could put it in the C section. If people are saying here, then put it in there. If, you know, like I listened to this, or when I heard him say this, you know, actions they took, you can put in here, and you sort of have this idea of who this person is. And a lot of people will give them a name, which is not a bad idea. So it could be, you know, John, he's 44, he's from Boise, Idaho, and he just got a new puppy, and he hasn't had a dog for years, and there's this new puppy, and he's just used to the old sort of spank him with a rolled up newspaper and run him outside as they start to piddle on the carpet or whatever. And so you can get this really crisp picture of this particular person, the type of house that they're living in, as much as you can detail-wise, so you can actually know them. That makes this that much more powerful, this one-on-one, because again, you're talking to this one person who is the perfect person for your product, and all you're doing is just telling your story. Now, number 4, so we talked about, again, what are copywriters doing, right? What are these 7 sort of magic things that these copywriters are doing that every sort of really good copy has got in it? And it's got objections. They all have objections, and they basically create the objection for you, right? Objections are opportunities, number 1. So for those of you who are trained in sales, it's something you learn really, really early on. Every objection is an opportunity. So when somebody says, oh, it's too expensive, you go, well, that's exactly why you should buy it, you know, because how can you afford to not buy something for $1,000 and, you know, it could cost you $10,000 later or whatever. But every objection is some sort of opportunity. The important thing when you're going through your copy, because again, you're having a conversation with them, but it's kind of one-sided, let's admit it, because it's just your sales page or your email or your opt-in page and the copy that's there talking to this person. But you want to bring up the objection first. So as you're going through, you don't want, in their head, they are having a conversation. Make no mistake, okay? This is why I keep calling it a conversation, because it is. And when you go through, if you kind of slow down your process as you read a sales page, you'll understand that's what's going on, because you're reading something going, oh, it's kind of BS. I don't really believe that. Or, gee, I wonder where they got that number. Or, man, it just seems like these testimonials are kind of fake. Or, wow, that video is just kind of, you know. Or, wow, this product looks like it. That's pretty cool. This seems like a total no-brainer. Man, and then you start thinking to yourself, if this is one of the $7 products, I'm totally buying it. $97 maybe, $147 we'll see. And this is way before the price comes out. You're having these conversations. Well, the reason you're having those conversations is because of the copy. The copy is helping to do that. And so things like objections, and occasionally you'll come across a page where it'll talk about, you know, it'll make some claim, right? So some sort of claim that seems not to be credible, seems too good to be true. So you can get page 1 ranking. So this software will help you get a page 1 ranking on Google. And, you know, at that point, you're kind of like, okay, whatever, that sounds hypey. And then on the next sentence, if it says, now I totally get or you might say something like, okay, now at this point you may be thinking, wow, that sounds sort of hypey. How can they actually claim that? And let me tell you how we can claim this. Here's how it works. Da, 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 da. And is there a catch? Absolutely, there's a catch. Here's what the catch is. And you're explaining, and you're kind of being this tour guide through your product, through the story of what your product is and what it can do for them. And you're literally pointing out objections. Yes, you know what? This is totally hypey. Most people won't believe it, but you will. And here's why you should believe it, because of this, this, and this. And yes, there is a catch. I know these things sound too good to be true, and there's always a catch behind it, and this is kind of you're waiting for the other shoe to drop. There absolutely is a catch. You have to work at least 30 minutes a day. And you're bringing up these objections and pointing out, like when I say work 30 minutes a day, I mean really work 30 minutes a day. Don't just open it up and pretend. You're going to have to do something, or whatever it is that your product does. If you bring up the objection first, it gives you credibility. They are naturally being led by you through the copy, and so you're sort of subconsciously, you're the leader through this process, which is a great place to be if you're trying to sell something. And again, it brings up rapport building. It helps them actually like you more, because if they start thinking about an objection and then you bring up the objection right away, like it's like you're inside their head, like you mentioned the price, and at first glance, I know this price can seem a little outrageous, and here's why it's worth it. And because at first glance, if you think it's a product, let's say it's 10 grand, right? And they're just kind of, wow, 10 grand, holy cow. And it's like, I know what you're thinking, 10 grand, incredibly high. Totally understand that. Here's why you want to think, here's how to think about this. And all of a sudden it's like, well, you're kind of in my head still. You're still leading me through this process. I'm still in rapport with you. I still like you. And that's incredibly powerful. So create the objection, walk through it. Even if you think there's absolutely no reason nobody would buy it, there is absolutely hundreds of reasons why somebody would not buy your product. Go through Amazon reviews, find out what those reasons might be, and then put them in here, drip them through your copy. Next, clear, credible motivation. I'm going to emphasize the word credible here. And this was an image that we found, which we thought was great, because this is exactly what's happening when somebody's trusting you with their credit card information, even if it's an email, right? If they're trusting you with an email, technically, even as something as simple as a click on an email to get them to go to a promo that you're emailed them, right? They're trusting you. They're literally falling back and they're hoping that whatever it is that you promised, right? Whatever the support that you're offering, whatever it is that you said you were going to do, that you're going to do it. And they're kind of falling back, and they realize there is this moment where you may not be like that. You may not promise. They're going to click on the email and it's going to go to a page that has nothing to do with what the email talked about, or they're going to buy this product and it's going to be some scammy thing that doesn't work, right? They're going to have these questions and comments and concerns. And if you have this clear, credible motivation, so you're what I mean by that is you've got to get over that initial, like, that's difficult. I mean, to fall back into somebody's arms and hope that they're going to catch you, that's a difficult thing to do. There's a lot of trust there. And that's emotionally, that same emotion, even though they're not physically doing that, that same emotion is coming into play. And so you got to get them a motivation to get over that, right? So some ways to do it: scarcity. You've probably heard that before. There's only 3 of these left. Now, clear, credible motivation. So I don't know that I'm such a big fan of, you got to buy, I only have 7 more copies of my digital ebook. I mean, come on, let's face it. I think maybe that worked at the beginning because people didn't realize, but it's a PDF. There's unlimited copies, unless it is truly a 3-day sale and you're going to take it down, like some sort of launch campaign where there's a specific period of time and then that's it, and it comes off, or maybe it comes off for that month or whatever. But at least there's some sort of true, credible scarcity that you follow through on. So make sure you can do that. Social proof. So this is, again, reviews. Getting people to leave testimonials or reviews, a little section that says, here's what other people are saying. Or more importantly, they just sort of drip those testimonials and reviews as you go through the copy. So when somebody's talking about the price point, it might have testimonials about, wow, I kind of thought this price point was a little high, then I bought it. Turns out I made 6 figures after that. Or I bought it, but it was totally worth it, changed my life, or whatever the thing was that is handling sort of that inherent objection over price. And that's what that testimonial or that review that's talking about price would go. If it's something that you might think the objection is, well, it's going to be difficult to use, or it's going to take too long to read, you could put a testimonial or review about how somebody, again, true testimonials, credible is the emphasis here, credible. You would find a review about somebody that said, you know what, I bought this thinking, it was kind of concerned it was going to take me a while to read it. And it turns out it didn't. It was a really quick read. I learned some great stuff. I've earmarked the book or whatever it is. And they support as you're going through. So all of this is just giving them motivation, giving you this particular person that you're having a conversation with here. It's giving them motivation to go through. Urgency. Okay, this is, again, why should they take action now? That could be something like the scarcity, which is like, hey, this in 3 days, then you're done. right? So there's a way to do that there. It could also be a price is going to rise. So, if you wanted to do something like that, there's lots of different ways to do urgency. And then reciprocity. Reciprocity is something that's sort of built in. So if you give them something and then take them to a sales page, so maybe, and Brian Dice is famous for this with his funnels. Frank Kern does a lot of this too, where you'll go through and this is essentially the launch model. Okay, so you see Jeff Walker, Mike Phil, whenever they do product launches, it's the exact same mechanism. That's reciprocity. It's they get you an email and then they give you incredible, useful content, truly useful content that is valuable onto its own. And they've given you all this content where you're like, wow, this stuff is really, really good. And you kind of feel like you owe them something. At least, if nothing else, you owe them your attention, to pay attention to the message. And then when they say, listen, if you think this is good, here's what we've got. It's got all this extra stuff to it, and it's step by step, and we've got webinars and support and everything else that's going to come with it. And all of a sudden, people are buying it because they've got that reciprocity built in, right? Not to mention they've established authority and everything else. So that's one way to kind of get over that little uncomfortable hurdle or huddle where they've got to sort of fall back into your arms. You need them to be able to do that. And so you want to put as many of these different elements in your copy so that it can do that. And again, not just all in one place, but scattered throughout the copy. Next, let's talk about how you build your copy. And this is really, really great copywriters. They know this, right? You go through a sales page, you never read it top to bottom. You just don't. No one's got time to do that. The first thing you do is you start scrolling around. You load it up, you see the headline, probably, and then you go, okay, well, I need to pay attention or not. And then at that point, you're either watching the VSL, and all this applies to VSLs too, or you're just kind of scrolling through the copy. And the way that you do this is you would go through and you actually start, this is what we call the scanner stack. You start your actual copywriting by doing this. First thing, right, you're going to write down the bones, okay? So that includes the headline, so just the main headline, and normally we'll test 5 to 7 different headlines depending upon the product just to see what works better than others. Then you do your subheadlines, okay? So first you write your headline, then you go through just kind of do your subheadlines. Now, the important part about this is the headline with the subheadlines should effectively communicate the flow. So I should be able to read the headline, read the subheadlines, and basically know everything that your product's about. That's what I mean by writing down the bones. So you may not have all the super nitty-gritty details, but I can get the general gist. Oh, it's a book about dog training. It's, looks like it's only $9.95. They obviously want me to buy it, versus maybe giving my email to get a free chapter or whatever this call to action is. Looks like the objections were that, they mentioned, I know you may be thinking it's like other dog books. Here's why it's different than other dog training books. And that could be an objection that you could even mention in a subheadline. And so you can kind of walk them through your copy. So then you go back and you add bullet points to some of those subheadlines. Okay, little bulleted points. And again, this is for those scanners because everybody scans. And when you do stuff like this, their eyes will naturally catch on a subheadline because it's different text. It'll kind of bring the awareness to the subheadline. They'll read it, and then they'll take a look at the bullet points, see if there's something there that keeps their eye. And if there is, then they'll start looking at the story around it. And that's where you go back and you can fill in the details of your story. And again, you're involving the reader. This is a conversation, right? You're not talking to them and not listening. You're listening to what they're thinking, right? And again, this takes, copywriting is a skill. It's a skill you can absolutely learn, and you've got to practice it, and you're going to be bad at first. So just kind of get that thought out of your head, like, yes, it's not going to work right away, and it's not supposed to. It's a skill like anything else. Just like when you started to ride a bike, you fell off a few times. When you started to walk when you were a kid, you fell down a few times. You're going to do the same thing with copywriting. But the sooner you start that process, the better you're going to get, and the faster you're going to get at it. So arming yourself with things like the Amazon reviews, then you can actually have this pretty good persona. Maybe you do an empathy map, and you've got this really good one-to-one conversation, and you understand as you're talking what this other person's thinking when they're going through, and you're writing this copy, and you literally write it as a conversation, filling in the details, and you're involving the reader as you go through and pointing out different objections, and then finally, like, listen, here, this is what I want you to do. Go ahead and click here to buy. Number 7, following a formula. Now, every copywriter has a formula, and there's a ton of formulas. In the show notes, I'm going to give you a link to a bunch of different ones, just more for your own curiosity if you want to take a look at it. Maybe one will stick, and here are a few. So you may have heard of the I think it's AIDA, they call it. So it's AIDA, but it's attention, interest, desire, and action. So first you get their attention with a nice compelling headline. Then you give their interest. So once you got their attention, you kind of get them to stick around for a little bit. Then you sort of stoke their desire for that particular product. Once they go, yes, this is something I totally want, you ask for the action, right? Click here to buy, enter your email here, click here to get started, whatever it is. Picture, promise, prove, and push. So that's another one. So picture, kind of developing whatever the, and again, this is just a formula. These are different copywriting formulas that people use. So picture is just creating a compelling picture of what the situation is. Promises, obviously, here's what this product will do. Proof, so this is the proving part of it, where you go through and give customer reviews or social proof, and then push, the call to action. There's one called star, chain, and hook. Okay, star is just hooking up to a star, hooking up to, like, here's, are you tired of wasting hundreds of hours with other obedience courses or thousands of dollars on obedience courses to still have a puppy who won't listen or dog that won't listen? So it's kind of like that star. You're hooking to this high sort of viewpoint in the horizon of, like, yes, and then you chain a bunch of series of statements together, which is essentially your copy, and that basically are subheadlines, and then you put it together with a hook. So the hook might be, for a dog training course, how easy this is, how effortless this is, how this is completely unique from other dog training courses. Maybe it's from some far eastern country that is just now coming to light thanks to the power of the internet. Who knows? And then there's always the simple, here's what it is, here's what it does, here's what you need to do next. And I believe that's sort of paraphrasing from Frank Kern's general copywriting formula. But here's what I've got, here's what it does, here's what I'd like you to do, and kind of goes from there. So that's the follow a formula. These are 4 different formulas, and again, in the show notes, I'll give you a bunch of different ones so that you have all of those. Now, avoid. Okay, this is the one thing. Remember, this is the one thing that copywriters just need to get away from. They hate this thing, right? And you want to look at this. It's called weeing all over yourself. That's actually a term, I believe, from Brian Eisenberg, who's a conversions guru here in Austin, one of the originals, actually. Literally wrote the book on conversions, and I believe coined the term conversion rate optimization with his brother Jeff. So a little trivia for you. But they call it weeing all over yourself, and that's replacing, when you go through and you read copy, and you'll see this a lot on about pages. So again, from a conversion standpoint, people go to about pages and they'll say, here's what I do, and here's what we do, and our company does this, and we do that, and we service customers who do this, and it's like, okay, we, I, right? So weeing all over themselves. We'll go through your copy, and this is difficult because you will sort of naturally, because you're having that conversation, and you will say things like, well, here's what I know you're probably thinking this, right? Well, I know you're probably thinking this is still I. It has I, right? And you don't know if they're thinking that. So what you could do is instead you would replace it with a phrase that says, you may be thinking something like, and now you're sort of removing the I. You're removing you from this whole thing, right? So I know it's getting a little confusing, the I's and we's and you's, but hopefully you get the idea. Get rid of the we's, get rid of the I's, replace them out with phrases that are you and your, because you're talking to this other person, right? And with this other person in this conversation that you're having with them. The more that you're talking about yourself, right? This is, again, this is the whole benefit driven. Remember this whole little what's in it for me thing, WIIFM, what's in it for me? You got to keep things benefit driven and focused on benefits for them. The second you can go through your copy and you go through and you say, okay, well, let me just see if this is kind of talking about them or is this talking about me? Then anything that's talking about you, yourself, get rid of. Just change it. You want to always make it about them. Action-oriented, value-driven terms. So what does this mean? So this would be when you're using your descriptive terms. So it's not just like, get this dog obedience training course. It's kind of boring. But you could do something value-driven. That might be like, get this easy-to-implement dog training course, okay, your easy to use dog training course, right? Effortless dog training system. Action oriented. So that's where you could do maybe, again, when you're talking about call to action. So download our effortless, easy to use dog training course, something like that. Click here to watch this, exciting video that delivers the secrets of, dog training from the Far East, whatever it happens to be. But it's more descriptive terms that require action, that give it some energy. So just think about these as energy, right? So you want to use adjectives, you want to use verbs, you want to have people visualizing whatever these phrases are as they go through it. Okay, and then finally, you want to make sure you do a 24-hour scour and scrub. And again, that's for the weeing all over yourself. Here's why. When you write your copy, you're going to be in love with it because it's going to be the greatest copy in the world. And it's like you gave birth to this thing, right? So after 24 hours, you want to give it a 24-hour period to let your subconscious sort of process everything and disconnect from it a little bit. Then you're going to come back to it and you're going to edit it. Most of the time, you're going to cut out about half of it, especially if you're doing any sort of long form, even with a VSL, if you're doing a video sales letter. You want to cut out about half of it because most of what you write isn't going to be useful. And so just sort of put it in there. Does it have a purpose? Is it doing one of these 7 things that we talked about? Is this adding to the motivation? Is this, building on maybe my urgency or my scarcity? Is this something that's a one-on-one conversation, or did I just start talking to a bunch of people with this particular phrase? Am I using their language, or is this my language? Right? Again, am I weeing all over myself? Like, what's in it for them? Am I focused on that? If it's not, just cut it out. You'll do better with less. So again, when it comes to copy, less is tends to be more. A question we get is, how long should something be? And the answer is just, it needs to be long enough, to get the job done. And that's just testing. You got to test over and over again. And that's the other thing that, it's not on the slide, something to consider. Your version of copy, and good copywriters, and we've paid 10 grand to have copy written, and we've paid hundreds of dollars to have copy written. Both copywriters, like on all different angles, I don't care what sort of stage these copywriters are in, they all understand this is the initial copy, and then you're going to test. So it's like, hey, here's your main sort of copy, this is the main hook, and they do a lot of research to get into the customer's mind, and they do the Amazon.com reviews, and they do all this sort of stuff to get an idea of what's going on. And then they, once they have that, they will actually, write out their hook, and they got that general part, and then they leave like, okay, we're going to test these 6 different headlines, or maybe this first part of, the first couple of paragraphs, right, or that initial 30 seconds of the VSL. That's the sort of stuff they're going to flip around, they're going to change. They're not going to get addicted to it, right? Just because they created it doesn't mean it's going to work, and they understand that. So you're going to create multiple versions of this, and whatever it looks like now, a year from now, after lots of different testing, right, as you kind of get feedback from the market, you're going to adjust it. And a year from now, it's going to look completely different anyway. So don't get attached to it. It's just a temporary way for you to get your message out, and it's going to get better and better and better the longer that it's in the market. All right, so that's going to bring us to the end of our copywriting focus topic. There's a couple of trends and some news, basically, that I really wanted to talk about that had come out over the past week or so. The very first one, and these are going to be fairly quick, and then we're going to jump into Q&A. The first one is Meet Benny. So Benny, for those of you who do not know, is really WordPress 4.0. So that's what they call their version of WordPress 4.0. WordPress calls it Benny. So if you have not upgraded, and you don't need to, I would avoid it. We are not upgrading yet. We're not upgrading yet because we want to let everybody, because this is a major update. This is not the security update that came out when they went to 3.9.2. This is to 4.0. It's a major update, and you all probably have notices. If you haven't realized already, when you log into your WordPress dashboard, it'll say WordPress 4.0 is available. Click here to update. Don't do that. If it's a new WordPress installation, you're just getting started, there's not a whole lot of content you have, awesome, do it. Go ahead and upgrade, because you'll probably be fine. And we have upgraded with some sites, and we have had, because we have test sites, right? So we've got those little test example sites that we use, and those have upgraded fine, and we're using OptimizePress 2.0, and we haven't seen any issues yet, but we're still going to wait, because OptimizePress has a lot of different elements in it, on 2.0, and so we're going to wait. We're going to just wait another probably 3 weeks or so, 2 or 3 weeks, and then we'll upgrade to 4.0. And after we do a Google search, and we're going to Google WordPress 4.0 and OptimizePress. And then we're going to see if people are complaining about stuff. And we're going to do the same thing for the other major plugins that we use. So maybe, the different, security plugins or stuff like that, just to make sure that there's not something that popped up that people are freaking out about. And a really good sign that you can actually upgrade to 4.0 is when you start seeing things like 4.0.1. Because then it's like, oh, wait, we had some fixes. People found some stuff. We made this quick patch. And when you start seeing that, you're like, okay, that they probably fixed whatever that major stuff was that broke things. But there, again, WordPress is very, very good about updates. Security updates are not a problem. I've never, ever, ever had a problem, and it can always happen. That's why I make backups. But I've never had a problem upgrading from security right away. But major updates, I have had issues, and so just give it a few weeks before you update. If you don't have to. So next is we mentioned this a couple weeks back, so we had HTTPS and ranking. So this is where Google basically said, hey, if you've got SSL and you make your entire site secure with SSL, so instead of just HTTP:// it's HTTPS://, and you can do this just by calling your host and saying you want to get an SSL certificate for your domain, and they can walk you through the process, and they're like $100 or less. But basically, Google was saying, hey, we're going to eventually give weight to sites that are secure in search results. Everyone kind of freaked out, and they were like, okay, what do we need to do? And in the beginning, they were very honest about it. So it's going to be a light factor. It's not something that's going to make any life-altering, or rank-altering, I should say, things with it when it comes to SEO. And So far, it hasn't. So they've done a lot of studies. These people who do this for a living, they've gone through, and it's been a few weeks now, and they've looked at sites that have done this, and they have not seen any change in ranking. That's good because it used to, technically, SSL makes your site just a tiny bit slower. And so people didn't do SSL before because they thought, okay, well, my site's going to go slower, and then Google is going to drop it in ranking because speed is also a factor. But if a site is SSL, it actually doesn't hurt it. So there is something that Google's starting to kind of play with where it seems like SSL will ultimately be a good thing. If you're looking to set up new sites, it's something you might want to think about. I do not think it's something you need to rush out for, so you don't need to freak out. If it's not on your radar at all, don't worry about it. But if you're at a stage where you're like, yeah, I've been wanting to go to SSL anyway, then go ahead and do that. And I'll give you an example. Like for Seriously Simple, we've got a secure.seriouslysimplemarketing.com that we've been playing with just for doing some custom API order forms and stuff like that to tie in with the Fusionsoft. So that is a secure domain because we needed to do that. So we're probably just going to do what they call a wildcard SSL certificate and upgrade it. So basically, instead of just for secure.seriouslysimplemarketing.com, it would be all subdomains of seriouslysimplemarketing.com. So www. Would be covered under that. So we'll probably upgrade because it just doesn't hurt not to. So if that's your stage, then so be it. Now the next thing is authorship. This is kind of one I'm sad to see go, to be honest, because I was a huge fan of this. But Google has this thing called authorship, or had this thing called authorship, and there was things called rich snippets that you would set up, and they would plug in special little SEO terms and things. And this is where if you ever did a Google search and you saw people's photos, or if you saw videos, like little video snippets that would show up in the search results, that's what authorship was. And so what happened is last week, Google basically said authorship is done, it's over. About a month ago, they decided to take out video, so we knew video was going away, though curiously enough, YouTube snippets are staying. So if your videos are not on YouTube, get them on YouTube, because that's the only way you're going to get that little video snippet where it shows in search results, little YouTube video. You got to be on YouTube to do that. There's no other way to do it. So that's something to consider. But the authorship, the little photos, are going away. Now, Google basically said, well, it's because it didn't really affect search and nobody was really using it from a user perspective. Okay, I get that. Maybe that's true. But if you have authorship on your site, which we do, we use a plugin that's called Google Authorship. And for those who are not familiar, all that really does is it connects back to a Google Plus profile and essentially tells Google, I am a real person. I wrote this. I am claiming this piece of content, this blog post, as my work. Let me show you what I mean, just to kind of put a little visual to this. So I'm going to jump into Seriously Simple. And again, this is just a plugin that we set up. I believe, I'm almost positive it's just called Google Authorship. So we're going to go into a blog post here. So this is one of the new ones we did, little black hat SEO, and why you should avoid it. So let's go here. So this is what Google Authorship does, right? It connects all this thing, and this, right, connects to the About page about Mercer, about me. So I've got my little author page here. Now behind the scenes, all of this stuff is all connected so that you can see this goes to my Google Plus profile, my personal Google Plus profile. All of this is connected to all these different social networks, and it's behind the scenes. What it's doing is it's telling Google Plus, Chris Mercer is a real person because he's got a Google Plus profile, so that's how Google Plus knows that I'm real. And I am saying I am the author of these articles in this case. So all of these articles, yay, pop-ups. All of these articles are written by me, and I'm claiming that they are my articles. So if somebody took these, which people will do, people will take and scam content, scrape content, and then build their own blog posts, and it'll be duplicate content. Google will at least know that I was the original author. So even though my little picture won't show in author search results anymore or in the Google search results, this idea of claiming your content, I personally would still keep doing it because I don't see what the bad part of that is. And with Google Authorship, this plugin, Google Authorship plugin, let me just show you that real quick. It is so simple to use. WordPress.org. Let's just do, we'll jump into the WordPress SEO plugin, but from here I'm going to search for the authorship. All right, so Google Plus authorship. Figures, there's all these other ones here now. That's it. I think that's it. You know, instead of just doing this live, here's what we're going to do. We're going to do it live, but we're going to come through and just get signed in real quick. Nothing like seeing the behind the scenes. And true to point, just so you know, see, we haven't, not lying, we have not updated to 4.0. So it says, but we're not going to. All right, so I'm going to go into our plugins and see what that was actually called. Oh, what happened there? Okay, let's see. Author Shore. There you go. So Author Shore. This is the and this is what they were talking about. So this is kind of interesting. So I personally, again, I would sort of keep it going. So we may not use Author Shore going forward, just based on that, unfortunately. But we're just talking about here, you know, if you've got a single, so this is what we're using right now. So we have a single author site, and we are using it for these. So this is something where, you know, we can kind of keep it going. I don't know, like I would watch for it. We'll see if it's something that is kind of see what happens there. But authorship, again, don't want to get too much into the woods with this. But if you have it connected, if you have things connected, I would keep them connected. I don't think it's going to hurt. I think if anything, it's going to help, and at least you can claim yourself that you've got the original content, because there's got to be something at Google that's keeping track of that. If nothing else, by date, so it goes, oh, well, hey, Mercer claimed this content way before this other person claimed this content. Chances are Mercer's the real person. We're going to give him a higher ranking toward it. Okay, that's going to bring us to the end of another exciting digital marketing this week adventure. So at this point, thank you again for joining us for digital marketing this week, and I look forward to seeing you on the next one.